Hey everybody, Nocturnal Recaps here. Today I'm going to tell you about a movie based on a true story called Persian Lessons, in which a Jew deceived a German officer for 3 years by teaching him a fake language. France, 1942. The protagonist of the movie, Gilles, is caught trying to cross the Swiss border and is taken to an unknown destination. There, he strikes up a conversation with another Jew who offers to trade a rare book for his sandwich. Gilles agrees and notices that it is written in Farsi, a language spoken in Iran. Suddenly, the truck stops and the captives are ordered to get out and line up, then shot in the back. Gilles tries to trick them by falling to the ground beforehand, but the soldiers notice this and order him to get up to finish what they started. Gilles begs to be spared, saying that he is not a Jew but a Persian, and shows a recently exchanged book as proof. One of the soldiers remembers that their commander needed a Persian for something, and they put Gilles back in the car. The action movie moves to a concentration camp where a German officer named Klaus Koch reprimands his subordinate named Elsa for her disgusting handwriting and kicks her out of her office. The soldiers enter Klaus's office and tell him that they have found a Persian. Klaus doesn't believe them at first, but they show him the book that was with Gilles. Klaus sets up a little test for Gilles, asking him to name the capital of Iran. Gilles answers without hesitation, Tehran. Klaus tells him to read something from a book, but Gilles replies that he can neither write nor read Persian. Klaus informs him that from now on he will work in the kitchen and teach him Farsi in the evenings. Gilles gets to work and tries to name the kitchen utensils and the food they prepare. In the evening, Klaus calls him to his office and tells him that after the war is over, he wants to move to Iran and open a restaurant there. He has a plan to learn 4 words every day, and by the end of the war, he will have learned 2,000 words. After which he orders Gilles to begin his tutoring, and he recounts everything he's managed to come up with. Gilles goes back to his barracks and constantly recites all the made-up words, trying to memorize them, because his life depends on it. In the morning, a soldier named Max, who had brought Gilles earlier, comes to Klaus and says that he has figured him out and Gilles is not a Persian, but by all accounts an ordinary Jew. Klaus kicks him out and demands that he stay out of it. A little later, Klaus removes his assistant from writing down the names in the journal and tells her that the Persian will now do it. The angered assistant tries to protest, but not daring to object to her superiors, she lashes out at the cook. Klaus calls Gilles to him and tells him to translate 40 words for him today. Gilles is shocked because he had trouble making up and memorizing a few, and there are as many as 40. Meanwhile, Elsa and Max discuss how they can get rid of the Jew pretending to be a Persian. Max suggests just eliminating him, but Elsa is afraid of incurring Klaus's wrath, so they decide to help him escape. Max accompanies Gilles carrying a cart of waste outside the camp and pretends to be distracted to let him escape. Gilles runs off into the woods where he runs into an old man sitting by a campfire. The old man beckons him over and tells him to come back, as he has no chance of escaping because the dogs will soon be sent after him. Gilles decides to heed the advice and returns to the camp, where he is immediately beckoned to him by Klaus and told that he will now enter the names of the arriving prisoners into a logbook. While filling in the logbook, he comes up with the brilliant idea of combining part of a prisoner's first and last name to create a word on Farsi. Half an hour later, Klaus returns and commends Gilles for his good handwriting and the finished word sheet. Klaus begins to test Gilles, and he, peeking at the list, successfully answers all the questions. The next day, Gilles distributes food to the prisoners and at the same time learns their names to create new words. Klaus is summoned by the camp commandant and asked about his progress in learning the language. Klaus replies that after the war, he wants to move to his brother in Iran, but the surprised commandant says that there is no mention of his brother in his file. Klaus, aware of his brother's disloyalty to the German authorities, replies that he has only recently learned that his brother has escaped. The commandant decides not to develop the topic further and asks Klaus to prepare food for 30 people for an upcoming picnic. During a picnic, Klaus asks Gilles how to translate a tree into Persian, and he replies Raj, completely forgetting that Raj is bread. Klaus is furious that Gilles has been deceiving him and beats him severely. In the evening, after some thought, Klaus orders Max to get rid of Gilles. Max takes him to the quarry, where Gilles is completely exhausted after a few days and collapses. He is taken to the barracks, where he starts speak in a fictional language in a delirium. Max brings Klaus to the barracks, where he listens to the words and realizes that they form a connected sentence where Gilles calls out to his mother and asks her to take him home. Klaus orders that Gilles be taken to the soldiers' infirmary and taken care of. A few days later, Klaus summons Gilles to his office and apologizes for what he has done. He gives Gilles new clothes and asks him to continue their lessons. A few months later, Gilles asks Klaus to speak to him in Farsi, thus averting any suspicion. Klaus tells of his childhood, how they starved, and how he and his brother sold hot water to survive. After a bit of dialogue, Klaus informs him that tomorrow Gilles will be taken to the farm for a while the others will be moved to a new location. Back from the farm, Gilles meets Max, who says he has enough patience and will see the death of this pretender. As he walks through the deserted camp, he notices a doll on the ground labeled Aviva and names the new word, insanity. A new batch of prisoners arrives, and Gilles asks their names to create new words in Farsi. During one of the lessons, Klaus offers Gilles a portion of fried potatoes, but Gilles asks to take them back to his barracks. Klaus opens 2 cans of stew and says he can eat the potatoes now and take the stew to his place. When he arrives at the barracks, Gilles gives the stew to a prisoner who has recently been severely beaten, thus saving his life. The prisoner's brother says that he will never forget it, and now he owes him a debt. During one of the new prisoner arrivals, Max notices a British pilot who is an ethnic Persian. The soldier is mad with joy because now he'll be able to expose Gilles, but it's all noticed by the guy Gilles helped earlier. Max runs after him to the kitchen to take him to the barracks, but when they return, the Persian is already dead. Out of anger, Max begins strangling Gilles, which forces the prisoner to confess to what he has done, and Max shoots him. The next day, a drunken Klaus comes to Gilles and tells him that tomorrow he will have to leave for the farm again. Arriving at the barracks, Gilles realizes what will happen to all these people and swaps jackets with one of the prisoners with the intention of going with them. The next morning, Gilles leaves with everyone for the new camp. This information reaches Klaus, and he runs after Gilles. When he catches up with the formation, he picks up Gilles and brings him back to the camp. Toward nightfall, the Allied army begins to approach the camp, and the commandant orders a retreat. Klaus comes to Gilles and takes him outside the camp. Max notices all this and runs to the commandant, burning all the documents and reports what he saw. But he just gets kicked out the door. Gilles and Klaus reach the woods, where Klaus discards his uniform and says that there is a plane to Tehran waiting for him, and Gilles is now free. Klaus arrives in Iran and starts talking to the airport staff in Farsi, but no one understands him.
Can you speak Farsi?
It is only now that Klaus realizes how cleverly Gilles has tricked him. Klaus tries to escape but is caught. Meanwhile, Gilles arrives at an Allied camp, where he is asked to give at least a few names of other prisoners because the Germans have destroyed all documents related to that camp. Gilles says he can name 2,048 names, learned through a made-up Persian language. The officer says this is impossible, but Gilles, holding back tears, gives all the names.